Ms. McCarthy, could you just tell us briefly what the current status of the roaming legislation is?
Well, it's come into force now, which we're all very pleased about, and certainly we in our hearing that we undertook as the Socialist members, we now see that people are beginning to feel the benefits in their pocket. So people have seen reduced costs. They get a text every time they go into another EU member state, telling them how much they pay to receive the call, how much they pay to make a call. So the legislation is working in that sense, and in terms of the information we've received from the regulators, it's clear that prices are coming down, but we do have a number of areas that we've got some concerns on, and one of those areas is effectively that in the past the operators were charging per second, and what they're now doing is charging by minutes, and that means effectively, let's say I'm on the phone for 1 minute 46 seconds, I end up being charged for 2 minutes, and I don't really believe that's in the spirit of the legislation, so that's an issue we do want to pick up with the regulators. And of course we haven't seen any action on texts, and for us texts still remain very much overpriced, and we said that very clearly to the companies and to the regulators, and therefore we feel that our position hasn't changed. If we don't see the costs coming down on texting, then in fact we would move to include that in the legislation. Now I think what's very interesting is that because we don't have any regulation around prices for texting in this legislation, that I interestingly received a text message from my operator saying to me, why not try texting, it's more discreet. What that effectively means is, why not try texting, because we can still charge you more for that, whereas EU law means we can only charge you so much in a cap for the charges inside Europe, and that's an area I think that we still need some action on.
Mm-hmm. So the latest regulators report has been quite positive about the benefits that that the legislation has brought to consumers. But how have the telephone companies themselves reacted to this? Have they been making a positive contribution?
Yes, I think to be fair to many of the companies, they initially didn't want the legislation, and of course we said to them, if the market can bring the cost down and you can do that without regulation, we would be happy with that. But that didn't happen. We still saw that the costs were well above the average, and that our consumers were still getting ripped off. So we effectively had to legislate as a last resource. Now they've come along with it. They've gone with the spirit and the flow of it, and many of the companies are bringing the prices down even below the caps, which I think is positive, because we set an upper limit. They've come below that. And I think that is positive. I'm a little bit concerned about some of those companies who decided to go to court and challenge the right of the EU to legislate in this area. That is something which I feel, well, it's their right to go to court if they wish, but I don't think it gives a very good positive signal or message to their consumers or to their clients who they're charging, and saying, okay, we grudgingly accept we are charging you less because of this legislation, but in fact we don't really believe that the EU has the right to legislate in this area.
Mm-hmm. And what do you see as the future of this legislation being?
Well, we've always said that if the costs come down and we can maintain, competitive prices and prices that are actually, just and fair prices for the consumer. We've always said we only want a fair price for the consumer. I mean, clearly, companies have to be allowed to make profits, but we felt that actually the charging was excessive and that the consumer effectively was being ripped off. So, that is coming down. We've said if we see the trend moving in that direction, this legislation does lapse. We put a sunset clause in it, which means that we won't need it, hopefully, after 3 years, because the market will have righted itself and the consumer will be getting a fair deal. And that still remains our objective. However, if we don't see the prices coming down, or indeed if we see prices creeping up again and unjustifiably creeping up and unjustifiably high, then of course we have the option to extend the legislation.